Hi, and welcome to the Slade experiment. Me and my humble abode, my midnight spaceship, a synthwave, sort of pink and blue this evening. My glass, blue also, full of tea, which is blueberry, there's so much blue in this episode, I don't even know where to start. How about here? Hello to everyone from Louisville. It was good to see a lot of faces that I haven't seen in a very long time. Louisville's a good city for that. I like the club. I was at the Caravan. Sue, Mary, Stephen, Dan. You guys were incredible. Becca and Christopher Bass came out. There were so many cool people. Mary, thank you for the list of podcast references. Dan, I went to the Louisville Slugger Museum with a friend of mine, and that was a cool experience. I like going through breweries and distilleries, seeing the manufacturing process to things. But the Bats was a new one for me, and I got to leave with this little mini Louisville Slugger that they let me on the airplane with. I was very surprised by that. TSA, you're slipping. I thought for sure. I was running late. I'm always first flight out when I leave a city. I try to be on the first flight. I was in a good mood. Even though I was running on a little bit of sleep, I had to go to the airport at like 4:30. We had late shows Saturday. I'd hung out with some folks. I did a couple of shots. By the time I got up Sunday morning to leave, I was a little tired, but I was still in a good mood. I'd gotten an upgrade to first class. It's going to be a nice, smooth flight. And then I realized that I wasn't early enough to check a bag, and I was going to have to try to carry this on. So I carried the little bat on, and no one said anything. What do you know? I just got lucky. It seems like that would be prohibited. While we were at the Louisville Slugger Museum, there's a cool part of it that you get to hold a game-used bat there's a variety of different players. But the cool part is it's not all modern players. They have Babe Ruth's bat and Hank Aaron's bat. And the Babe Ruth bat was a cool one, man. Young baseball player here. Kid grew up on all that. I think I swung a 28-ounce bat when I played, 28-ounce aluminum bat. And Babe Ruth's bat was, I think, 42.7 ounces of just wood, just chunky. Used it in game. Pretty remarkable experience. So cheers, Louisville. You were good. I want to get to my Saturday here in a second. I want to talk about what I did yesterday. I tape these on Sundays. Before I do, the Kickstarter is up and running. It's kicking ass. It's at like 80%. You guys are absolutely amazing. I'm incredibly gracious and grateful. There are still like a week and a half, maybe or so left by the time you're listening to this. Should be on the home stretch, but in the off chance that you'd like to contribute, it's my birthday week this coming Saturday. It's my birthday, so just drop a little something in the kitty if you were going to give me some. That'd be a great way to do it. I'm making a comedy special. I'd love for you to be a part of it. I'm actually going to give you tons of rewards if you do join. Go to Kickstarter and search Slade Ham, or all my social media should have links. I look forward to you joining me there Saturday. And I got other stuff I want to cover too. But Saturday morning, it's the first day, the first weekend, the first moment I've had that I've had a full day with nothing to do. No obligations, no one begging me to be around them, to hang out, to do stuff, to go places, to finish something up, to edit. I just shelved everything. And I woke up and I decided I was going to do my Saturday morning the way I did it, a la 1984. That was a good era. I picked that year specifically. It was before my parents got divorced. I know the house we were living in. I remember my Saturday mornings pretty vividly. I remember them very vividly after the divorce as well. I remember my mom's house in Beaumont. But a lot of those years bleed together. There's Nintendos in there. There's neighbor kids. There's a lot of playing outside. My brothers are older. So some of those Saturdays sort of accordion in together. But 1984, I remember vividly. And what was cool about it, here's what was cool about Saturday mornings. And it's making me consider how I digest or ingest media today. Because television, we act like we're in this My generation's a weird one. We're the only generation. I'm not saying the boomers didn't, but barely. My generation bridged the gaps between analog and digital. More than any other generation, my generation was in its teens as the internet came to its modern state. We watched Photoshop and graphic design and web pages materialize before my eyes. And all of that led to this modern streaming media empire that exists today. But prior to this, in the not so distant past, not so much that you'd have to read about it in scrolls like they'd have you believe, we used to have to watch television just when it happened. If you weren't there, you just missed it. That's simple. You didn't see it, you didn't see it. Saturday morning cartoons were an exercise in decision making. If you're a young child, at the time you had 3 networks, ABC, NBC, CBS. Each one of them with their own Saturday morning lineup, chock full of all the stuff, all the sugary intellectual goodness that a child's brain wants. And every network aired its own lineup. So you had decisions to make starting around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't remember when cartoons started. I know they didn't start as early as 7. I'm on Central Time. My guess is 8. So I went back and I looked at the possible lineups, and I can tell you what I would have done in 1984. You had to make some decisions. Some of these shows ran for 30 minutes. Some of these shows ran for as long as an hour, sometimes 90 minutes. Here's my 1984 cartoon lineup. I probably started with the Snorks. I had to have, because I remember the Snorks, and I wouldn't have seen the Snorks anywhere else. If you don't remember the Snorks, they lived underwater. They had scuba heads, which was really kind of like snorkels on their heads, but they never came to the surface, so it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Most of the 80s didn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm going to put a mock playlist down in the show notes. You guys can go check out some of these cartoons for yourself. So the Snorks was a good place to start. You could passively watch that, but at some point you had to switch over to Super Friends. This was important. This was all of DC. Justice League, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Green Lantern, all of them there. Remember very specifically, yesterday I watched an episode where they had to fight Mixelplix, that Superman bad guy with no vowels, Mixelplix, It's fun to say, Mixelplicked in the Magic Lamp. That was the episode. So you would get a couple of things of Super Friends. Then you had to switch over. There was a small window, I remember. I would always watch the Smurfs, but I would never watch all of the Smurfs. The Smurfs would be like an hour long, maybe 90 minutes long, but every little vignette was like, 10 minutes. So you could watch a bunch of little things. So I'd always switch over in this gap between Super Friends, watch Smurfs. The Smurfs I have so many questions about. I remember Osriel. I don't want to dwell on the Smurfs. I don't want to dwell on any of this. I want to get to the rest of this lineup. But now that I'm thinking about it, there was Osriel, the cat, Gargamel, and then there were a bunch of other regular people in the Smurfs that I forgot about. Hagatha, the big fat witch. I think I might be mixing some people up from Adventure Time. Anyway, the Smurfs was a lot of fun. I used to like to see how many Smurfs would show up, and there were tons. Then I would move over to Dungeons and Dragons. Another attempt to port an 80s pastime to the screen. It was cool. The Ranger, the Cavalier. Let's see if I can remember all these just from watching this episode yesterday. The Ranger, the Cavalier, the Barbarian, the Thief, the Acrobat. Who am I missing? Anyway, there's one more. There's 6 of them. Anyway, these kids, all 80s, and there was no backstory. These kids got on a roller coaster and they ended up in Dungeons and Dragons. That's it. They just got on a roller coaster, some music played, next thing you know, they're in fantasy land. That's all it took in the 80s to make a TV show. And after Dungeons and Dragons, I skipped my 4th or 5th birthday party for this cartoon. It was Scooby-Doo. Not just any Scooby-Doo, the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries. That was the one that came out in the 80s that I remember with Scrappy-Doo. I couldn't miss an episode. I was really into Daphne, but I was a dude, so who wasn't? And Scooby-Doo led into the Littles. I don't know if you remember this show about a bunch of little elves that live behind a cupboard. 80s made no sense. And this little kid found them. It's like Indian in the cupboard or some Studio Ghibli kind. It reminds you of everything. Dude finds some people that live in the walls. There's a bunch of episodes. And then from there, you'd switch over, wrap things up with the Amazing Spider-Man. You start with DC, you end with Marvel. You watch Spider-Man and all his friends. No wonder I was hooked on comic books as a child. This was my morning. Honorable mention to Kid Video, KIDD Video. If you don't remember Kid Video, it's a band that got sucked in. It was another dungeon. These were all the same cartoon. You should go back on YouTube. I'm putting links up to all of this. You can go back on YouTube and watch a bunch of this. And I recommend wholeheartedly doing this with a bowl of cereal in your lap, sitting on the floor if you can do it. Avoid the couch. You know the grown-ups are going to yell at you for doing that. Sit on the floor. Move the coffee table out of the way. Our TVs are too high now to do that. You can't sit on the floor and watch TV the way you could. That's probably what's messing up a whole generation. Laying on the floor. They say it was bad for you. They say laying on the floor that close to the TV was bad for you, but our generation seemed to be okay, and this generation seems to not be that great. So maybe we should lower the TVs, get them off the wall, stop hanging them on the ceiling the way we do. Just bring them down to a regular eye level so you can lay on the floor with your feet kicked back and your bowl of cereal in front of you, watching Dungeons and Dragons. They would always have to fight Venger and Tiamat, the dragon. I remember all of this so vividly. And the reason it worked, the reason this was so good, the reason I think TV media, these things were objectively, be careful I don't misspeak here. I don't want to say objectively better, because it's hard to argue that some of the stuff made today isn't better. But the problem lies in the fact that better encompasses a lot of other details, right? It's made up of variables. It isn't just production quality. Better includes traits like rarity, scarcity. That's what we had. There was some scarcity to this. You saw the cartoons on Saturday mornings. They were a certain quality because that's all you could do to pump out an episode every single week. Movies were a big thing. You remember what happened when like a TV show got a movie? How everybody kind of Sex and the City, the movie or whatever. We would get all excited about this because what we knew was going to happen was we were going to see our childhood likes, the things we enjoyed, go to the big screen. And when they did that, they were going to get an upgrade in quality. They were going to be shot on better cameras. The sound was going to be better. The filters were going to be better. The film was good. It was all going to be better. Star Trek, The Next Generation, that was my jam. That's a perfect example right there. I use that as an example for all of this. One, when we got a Star Trek, The Next Generation movie, the quality was arguably better than what we'd been seeing on TV for those 7 seasons. But if you go back and you look at what was so good about those seasons, that show in general, any show you watch from that era in general, you had to wait a week to see it. Not the way you do now. Now you just wait till it's done and then you binge it. And I would argue that taking something in binge fashion doesn't hold the same meaning. And I don't know the math or the science behind why, but I would guess, if I was a guessing person, that it has to do with how we file our memories away, right? With Star Trek, he's a perfect example, the best of both worlds. Season 3 finale, season 4 premiere. I remember this. It's a formative television moment for me. Now, if you're not familiar with Star Trek: The Next Generation, I'll break it down to you very fast. Patrick Stewart plays the captain, Jean-Luc Picard, captain of the Starship Enterprise, the NC-1701D, actually the ship that he captains in Next Generation. And they fight. There's a whole cast of characters: Will Riker, the first officer; Deanna Troi, the counselor; Worf, the security guy; Data, the android, and then you've got Geordi in engineering. But the bigger point is this cast. So all together, they're fighting the Borg in the season 3 finale. And Captain Picard is abducted in this finale. They think they have a brilliant plan. Captain Picard gets abducted. The Borg, nobody knows what's going on. And right at the very end, Captain Picard's head turns, and he's been Borgified. He's been turned into half Borg. He's got a big metal thing over one face. And the laser light is what I remember, because he looks right at the camera. This is how this episode ends, right? They're fighting. The Borg are like these robot, they're cyborgs. They're races of people that have been assimilated. So they've got robot parts, and it's all cheesy 80s, 90s special effects. And Captain Picard looks at the camera, and he's all Borged up, and he goes, "I am Locutus of Borg." And then the Will Riker, they cut to him, that laser light, it shoots right in the camera. I mean, I can feel it right now. And Will Riker looks over and he goes, "Mr. Worf, fire." And then the whole screen just goes black. And you just had to sit on that. Not the way you got to sit on these dumb cliffhangers now. They end seasons intentionally. This had never really been done before. And this was coming out week by week by week. So in June, when they aired the season finale of season 3, I am Locutus. I think I had to sit there until when the new shows come out? September? I had to sit till September. They would just replay every week another old episode. You'd have to watch all the replays, and then you'd get to the premiere. That was magic. We don't have any of that anymore. Everything is out. There's no scarcity. There's no rarity. There's not 2 sci-fi shows on. There's 2,000. They're all saying and doing the same thing. You don't even get the luxury of something getting upgraded to movie form anymore, because it's already coming out in movie form, because cameras are cheap and lenses are cheap and production is cheap and it's all cheap. And you just make 1,000 of a thing and see if any of it sticks in our heads. And none of it really sticks in our heads because we're not filing these memories away with any importance. We're just watching 12 episodes of a thing on a Saturday and just going on with our lives. It's this TikTok generation that, if you think back to TikTok, think of how much you scrolled today or yesterday, right? Tell me one thing you saw. Tell me one thing that you really remember looking at a specific time. Not one thing that has stood out over the last several weeks. I remember this TikTok. No, like one from yesterday at a specific time. It's very hard to do because we're not filing any of this away. We're just... You do spend 100 or 200 hours maybe trying to find the one glimmer of light in it all. That's how I used to find music. I would just put on all these random playlists and discover weeklies and things and let them just jam into my head, and I'd have to listen to so much terrible stuff to get to anything good. And it's interesting to feel like I was doing that without really thinking about why. What is the deeper emotional need to that scroll, to that endless, put me in the river and let all this new stuff wash over me and I'll just take away one or two good things from it. Why should I have to endure those 100 hours of terrible stuff? What is it I'm trying to feel? Some of it was coming from the fact that I was on my phone all the time. And it was just one of the cycle of things I would go through. I'd hit all the popular social media stuff. You'd have to go to Facebook. You'd have to go to Instagram. You'd have to check YouTube. You'd have to pop by Discord. You'd have to check your Slack channel. And then your IMs and DMs and all that stuff. And then I'd go to Spotify and I'd just pop on a playlist and I'd let that be the soundtrack to whatever the day was. And I was skipping 90% of the music. Enjoying about 5% of it, maybe saving 1% of it. And that's kind of the point about TV. There is no deliberate sitting down. I'm going to spend 7 o'clock at this time. There's no commitment between me and a show. There's no sitting down and courting it. It's not trying to entice me anymore. I'm not trying to convince it should stick around. We just have this cheap midnight rendezvous relationship where some shows just die on you right in the middle of the night. Season in, just dead. That's betrayal. It's because we no longer give each other the attention we deserve. Me and TV. Maybe if you're on the floor, TV, I'd sit down. I'd get a little more comfortable with you. We can get to the bottom of all of this. I want to be back there just briefly. Mr. Wolf, fire. Nothing. There hadn't been a TV moment that's felt that powerful to me in a while. Maybe I'll go back and rewatch that. All right. There are lots of opportunities to catch me, listen to me, find me this month. I've been touring quite a bit. I've also been doing the podcast tours. So I'm on a lot of podcasts in May. If you just search my name in Spotify, I'll probably pop up on a bunch. Lots of recurring questions, right? I guess we can talk about that real quick before we get out of here. People ask, one, how you got started. That's a big one. And then the second most recurring question right now is whether or not I'm afraid of cancel culture, whether or not I'm afraid of this changing landscape, whether or not I'm concerned. What do I think as an artist, as a comic, as someone who relies on their free speech? What's my prayer? Such dumb questions. They're not dumb questions. They're fair questions. But everybody's always taken aback when I tell them that I'm not concerned, that I don't care, that I'm not worried about it. And it just comes down to, this is what I was trying to explain on the radio show the other morning. It comes down to the fact that for all of my pessimism and all of my anti-socialism and all of my misanthropy, I think I believe more in the human race than I appear to. I give us more credit for all of our nonsense, for all of the things that we skitter off chasing, for all of the stuff that grabs our attention when it shouldn't, for all of the misfocused good we could put out into the world. For all of that, I think we're still pretty okay. I think we as a people make the right decision most of the time. So while there's currently this culture of canceling and yammering people, getting people thrown off of other platforms, I don't think there's any permanent damage. I think that we as a society exist. This is what I've been trying to explain. I have a tough time doing. Most of us, 80%, exist in this bubble. Maybe 90% of us. And on the edges, we just have these loud folks. And those loud folks are making us on the inside think something's going on the outside. You ever listen to cats fight? At night, you hear something going on outside, and you're like, there must be 6,000 cats out there to be making all that noise. You walk outside, it turns out it's just one cat. There's not even a second cat, just one, just making noise. I would have sworn that was an army of cats. That's what those people on the edges are doing. They're making the rest of us inside. They're rattling the walls, and they're shaking things. They're making us think something's going on, and there's just not. Society makes the right decisions, usually. We will land on a balance somewhere in the middle. We've done it with everything. There's a reason doors are about 7 feet tall. That's where we decided as a society we should land. Right there where about 90% of the people fall, plus a little bit extra. That's the truth. We don't make doors 20 feet tall because Dave likes to wear stilts. That'd be ridiculous. We also don't make them 4 feet tall because one dude would fit through there and the rest of us could make it if we really tried. We generally do what 90% of us find proper at the time. So I don't worry too much about all of this nonsense. Got thoughts on everything else. Those edgy people, though. We just got to learn to discount them. You got to give them their voice. You got to let them say what they want to say, and then you got to get them out of here. You're going to have both ends of the spectrum saying loud, stupid stuff. There's nothing you can do about it. I should be able to bring my gun to a quinceañera. Give me one reason. If you don't let a drag queen deliver your baby, you're racist. Like those people on those ends of the spectrum. We just got to let them say their piece and then just tell them no. And then build our 6 or 7 foot door anyway. We're going to figure this out. SladeHam.com, my website. Social media, all things at SladeHam. If you want to join my Kickstarter, it runs through June 1st. My birthday is at the end of this week. It's Saturday. So if you want to do something good, go to that Kickstarter, drop me a little love. I'd be very appreciative. We're going to make one banging special. I can't even tell you some of the people who are on board as producers. It's an exciting thing. I ran some of this show in Louisville. I've got all summer to work it out. I'm adding dates constantly. I want you to be part of it. It's very, very simple. I'm giving all kinds of stuff away. And in fact, once we reach the goal, I think the goal is 13.5. If we hit 14K, everybody gets a free digital copy of my book. You don't have to actually join the Kickstarter campaign to get that. You could just go to my website and join the newsletter. It's going to give you a pop-up as soon as you go. So just either way, you can get a digital copy of the book. All the other stuff is fun and physical. It'll put you on the credits of the special. It'll put you on the playbill. It'll give you a physical copy of my book. It'll get you an internet shout-out. It'll get you an original piece of art or whatever I send out for the thank you cards. And there's tons of ways to get involved. But most importantly, you will be helping me make a comedy special. So I'm kind of excited about doing something with my friends and fans. Get on board. This episode done. Last week was a Slade Runner. You know where to find that. I'll probably try to remember to put the link down in there. But there's a whole playlist of Slade Runner episodes on my website. So go watch some Saturday morning cartoons. Snork, Super Friends, Dungeons and Dragons, The Smurfs, Scooby-Doo, The Littles, Amazing Spider-Man, and a little bit of kid video. That should set you up. I recommend a bowl of marshmallow Cocoa Pebbles. It is a bit anachronistic. It won't exactly fit in the 80s. I don't think they had the marshmallow Pebbles back then. But Corn Pops work too. Whatever your favorite cereal was. Bonus points if you go on eBay and find Smurf Berry Crunch to get something era authentic. I don't know. Do your Saturday the way you want to. I'm going to get out of here. I'll leave you guys on a high note. I'm Slade Ham. This is The Experiment.